So the common thread across all of Sony's new portable Bluetooth speaker lineup is that all of these speakers sound significantly better than their predecessors. Which is great because obviously sound is very important to take into consideration for whenever you're looking to getting a speaker. But today we're going to break down the XB43, XB33, and XB23 because depending on your needs, one is going to be better than the other for you. So first off, there's price. The XB23 retails for $100, the XB33 retails for $150, and the XB43 retails for $250. Ultimately, I think all of these speakers are fairly priced, so if you want to pick any of these speakers up, they'll be linked down below. Now, when it comes to design, all three of these speakers have the same basic fundamentals. All three of these speakers have a mostly fabric body, so they should be able to stand up to constant bumps and scrapes with no problems. And they're all IP67 rated, so you don't have to worry about getting any of these speakers a little wet. But if you are looking for a speaker to constantly take on the go with you, then my top pick here is the XB33. Now, even though the XB23 is a little smaller than the XB33, for a small portable Bluetooth speaker, the XB23 is still pretty big when compared to other options out there. Whereas the XB33 is just a little bigger than the XB23. So for that reason, I say just spring for the XB33 and enjoy the benefits that it brings. And then there's the XB43. Personally, I don't like taking the speaker on the go with me because it is pretty large and it's very dense because it weighs in at 6.5 pounds, whereas the XB33 weighs in at 2.4 pounds. So personally, I would recommend the XB43 to mostly just use around the house. Now, both the XB43 and XB33 have an improved light feature on them, especially the XB33 because it now has light-up transducers. Now, the light features on these speakers aren't amazing, but they are decent. And from Sony's app, you have a few different lighting modes to choose from, but the main ones here are Rave, Chill, and Strobe. Now, when it comes to tech specs, all three of these speakers charge via a USB-C port, which is great because if you're an Android user, you can charge your phone and speaker with the same cable. But it's very important to keep in mind that the USB-C port on all of these speakers are strictly used for charging. You can't use these USB-C ports as a wired connection, and you can't use these USB-C ports to charge your own devices. And it's also very important to keep in mind that only the XB43 comes included with a complete charging cable, whereas both the XB33 and XB23 only come included with a USB-A to USB-C cable, so you're gonna have to use your own wall adapter here. Now, when it comes to battery lives, all three of these speakers have two advertised battery lives. One while in stamina mode and another one while they're in extra bass mode. Now, personally, I don't like to use stamina mode on any of these speakers when I'm going to listen to music with them because stamina mode makes these speakers sound very flat. So if you're going to listen to music with these speakers, you want to use them while in extra bass mode. But I do switch them over to stamina mode whenever I'm going to listen to a podcast in the background. Now, overall, the XB33 has the best performing battery life here. Now, this speaker has an advertised battery life of 14 hours while in extra bass mode, but that's when this speaker is playing at 50% volume. At max volume, this speaker is good for around 3.5 hours of playback time, and at 80% volume, this speaker is good for around 7 hours of playback time. So the XB33 does have decent real-world battery life performance. Then there's the XB23, which has an advertised battery life of 10 hours, but at max volume, the speaker is good for around 2.5 to 3 hours of playback time, and at 80% volume, the speaker is good for around 4.5, maybe 5 hours of playback time. And finally, there's the XB43 that has an advertised battery life of 14 hours while in extra bass mode, just like the XB33. But at max volume, this speaker only lasts me 2 hours of playback time, and at 80% volume, this speaker only lasts me 4.5, maybe 5 hours of playback time. So if you are looking for a speaker here that's going to last you a while on a single charge, then I do recommend the XB33 over the XB43. Now, when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, all three of these speakers can be connected to two devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ. And all of these speakers have zero latency across the board whenever you're watching movies or videos on your phone, whether you're using an iPhone or an Android device. And all three of these speakers have support for higher quality audio codecs like AAC and LDAC, unlike a lot of other speakers out there that strictly use SBC. But it's also very important to keep in mind that only the XB43 has an audio jack, whereas these other two speakers don't. Now, personally, I don't mind not having an audio jack, but I do think that the XB33 and XB23 should still have an audio jack just in case. And also keep in mind the XB23 is the only speaker here that doesn't have a USB-A out port so that you can charge your own devices. But now let's talk about listening to music with these speakers. Now all of these speakers have new setups. Most notably, all three of these speakers now have passive radiators that shoot out the sides, similar to JBL speakers. Now both the XB23 and XB33 have dual front-wheel firing transducers accompanying those dual side passive radiators. But the XB43 has dual front-wheel firing woofers, but more importantly, they have brand new front-wheel firing tweeters, which is something that was completely missing and sorely missed on the outgoing XB41. But now we're going to jump into the sound test. All three of these speakers are playing at max volume, and all three of these speakers are playing while in extra bass mode.
You got me trapped inside this spell. Now I feel it. Your demons drag me close to hell. I can feel it.
So the main thing that all three of these speakers have in common is that they all have a far better instrument separation and a much wider soundstage than their predecessors. And in general, all three of these speakers sound really good when compared to their direct competitors. But the XB23 does sound very different from both the XB33 and XB43. The XB23 does put a little more emphasis on the mids and highs than these other two speakers, whereas the sound signatures on both the XB33 and XB43 are basically identical. But with the XB43, the highs are much better defined than on the XB33 thanks to those new dual tweeters. And also, just as you'd expect, the XB43 does have more bass than the XB33, because its larger passive radiators are just able to move more air around. But don't get me wrong, the XB33 does have an impressive amount of bass for its size. Now, when it comes to max volume, just as you'd expect, the larger the speaker, the louder it gets as well. Now, both the XB23 and XB33 get decently loud for their size and price. But then there's the XB43. It gets decently loud as well, but I can't help but feel that I wish it got a little louder. And I also wish that we would get a performance bump out of it while you use it, while it's plugged in, like you do with some other speakers out there. So for that reason, I still kind of wish the XB43 still charged via an AC port instead of strictly via a USB-C port. but the XB43 does get loud enough to get the job done. But one trick that you can do to make the XB43 sound louder is that you can go into Sony's app and raise the mids and treble on this speaker. But then the speaker is going to sound a little brighter, but it does get the job done as well. Now both the XB33 and XB23 also have an adjustable EQ, so you can make any of these speakers sound however you want. But very quickly, I also want to address live sound mode that's found on the XB43 and XB33. I just don't use or care about live sound mode because all live sound mode does is that it adds a whole bunch of reverb to your music. So just like stamina mode, I never use live sound mode. But finally, there's the speakers pairing protocols. Now, all of these speakers are using Sony's new Party Connect, meaning that you can only pair a Party Connect speaker to another Party Connect speaker. So you can only pair an XB43, XB33, and XB23 to one another. And this also means that you can't pair any of these newer Sony Party Connect speakers to any of Sony's older speakers that are using wireless party chain. So, with all that being said, I do like Sony's new portable Bluetooth speaker lineup mainly because they sound way better than their predecessors. All three of these speakers have very impressive instrument separation and much wider sound stages. Now personally, my favorite speaker to recommend here is going to be the XB33. The XB33 sounds great, it has decent real-world battery life, and it's also fairly rugged. So if you want to take it on the go with you, then I think this speaker is a great option. But then there's the XB43 and XB23. Now, don't get me wrong, I like how these speakers sound, but for me, their battery lives aren't all that great. I think the XB43 and XB23 are great to use around the house, but if you need something that's going to last long on a single charge, then you're better off with the XB33. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.